Hey guys, Bike here, and I'm back again with another last Epoch build guide video. This one is for the Void Knight. So huge thank you so much for the huge show of support for the Bleed Hammers leveling build guide. This one is going to be for the Void Knight Rive leveling build guide. So essentially we took Rive, we made a character in solo character found, took it from obviously level 1, no shared stash, so no shards, no nothing to boost my performance in any way. Took it all the way to all 10 out of 10 Harbingers dead. I even attempted Aberoth. That didn't go well. But nonetheless, it's doable. And I did it all without volatile reversal. So I will say this, though. I do think that this build should be played in Merchant's Guild if you're going to be cycle starting with it. It can definitely be done, especially if you don't care, or season starting, excuse me, especially if you don't care about like races or how fast you're going. You can most definitely do this in Circle of Fortune. I did. It's very doable, but if you're playing, if you like the idea of Merchant's Guild and you're playing a melee build like Rive, it could definitely benefit from being able to trade and get some of those items very quickly. I got very lucky with a number of the items that I got in this run, but nonetheless, it was a great time. I think it's going to be even better in season 2. Those are the words you want to hear, right? I think it's going to be better in season 2 because of the conversion on Rive fully into void damage. So what I got for you guys here today is 4 planners. I'm going to go over the planners, show you how I did the planners. Then I'm going to go over the loot filter. So show you how I did the loot filter. And then we'll go over some of the gameplay. There's links in the description down below. I'd be remiss if I didn't give a shout out to Volka over on the Maxroll guide, Maxroll team. So link to his build from Maxroll in the description down below. The build near the end started resembling a lot of the work that he did, and so I wanted to give him a shout out on that one. Thank you so much, Volka, for your assistance with your build guide. So with all that being said, thank you so much for clicking on the video. So we're going to go into the planners, the loot filter, and then I will go into the game, showcase a few things for you. So let's get into it. All right, here we are in planner, so excuse the ads. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over the first planner, then I'm going to go over the last planner, and we're going to look over all the different things that we got there. I'm going to go into my mindset when it comes into putting these planners together and some of the features, and then you guys can take it from there. So one thing I did do when I was playing this, I did level with Javelin Holy Trail. I ultimately did not like Holy Trail, and I canned it at some point. I got rid of it. But I'm going to recommend that you level with Void Cleave, Erasing Strike. Well, Rive, Healing Hands, Void Cleave, Erasing Strike, and then eventually Anomaly. And that'll be evident in the planners. But if you guys want to use Holy Trail, it would have been the same exact setup that I had from my Bleed Hammers guide. So if you guys want to use Javelin Holy Trail, you can go check it out. So let's go ahead and look at the planners here. So what we got right here, let's get rid of this ad. So what we got right here is a bar, right? Slide the bar backwards. If you look at that, it'll show you exactly what kind of point, like what points and what order you should take it. So use the bar to your advantage. Same thing for the skills. So I'm going to recommend, the way I have this first planner set up is as if you're level 20. So you have 20 points roughly. This is assuming you've done like 1, maybe 2 of the side quests. So you got 20 points to spend in your passive tree. And then you have all 3 skills, because at level 20 you unlock your 3rd skill. And you have 5 points in each. So with Rive, same thing with a bar. Go with that. You're trying to get to Foe Cleaver fast because it gives you a double damage, so to speak, from your 2-handed weapons. I recommend you use lunge, but what's going to happen, and it'll be evident in the planners, but you're going to respec lunge and take Healing Hands as a traversal skill. And it'll be evident in the second planner. And then for Void Cleave, the plan here is to eventually get out over to Obliterator, take Obliterator. So you hit an enemy with Void Cleave, and it makes your Erasing Strike an automatic crit. So those are the points there. So let's talk about idols real quick. So obviously by this point, you've maybe unlocked 2 idol slots, right? You know, you've unlocked these because you've done one quest, assuming you've done the quest. For your idols, I highly recommend you just put in defenses, health, resistances, that sort of thing. Later on, I do recommend 2 idols to rock. They're increased echo damage when a skill echoes, but beyond that, just rock whatever you want. So like I said, just rock defenses. So I do highly recommend you take a 2-handed axe or sword, because Void Cleave, if you didn't know, requires a 2-handed axe or sword, unless you're using Aberoth's command, but we're not going to talk about that. So I do recommend the axe. It gives you a little bit more damage. You can take some extra points for it to give you a little bit more to get you through the campaign. So yeah, I recommend 2-handed axe, but you could also do a 2-handed sword. It's just fine. What we're looking for here is you're just trying to fill your gear with whatever you can find. So don't treat this as gospel. Like, I must have a helmet with 2 tiers of physical resistance and nothing else. That's not the point. The point is fill in the gear, and these are, excuse me, the most useful stats that you can have, in my opinion. In my opinion, when you're leveling, physical resistance is one of the most useful resistances to have. So I recommend just taking physical resistance where you can, and then health on your gloves, take melee attack speed. You're probably going to have way more than this. These are just notable affixes to look out for. And in the loot filter section, I highlight a few of the early loot, like few of the early filters I got out there to try and find a 2-handed axe with melee damage, to find a pair of boots with movement speed. So I looked out for you guys a little bit, but check out the loot filter section. So with the reins, obviously you're just trying to use whatever, but silver reins are pretty nice early on just for the movement speed. And then, like I said, get yourself some physical resistance, whatever else you might be lacking, health, endurance, that sort of thing. And that's just how it starts. And all of my planners up until the final one are kind of like this as well. So just go with this. This is just, early on. We'll go over some gameplay later. I'll show you a few things, and we'll go with that. Let's go into the final planner. All right, here we are with the final planner. So just like the other one, I added a bar, right? And this one, I took you all the way to level 100. So you can go ahead and follow that. Feel free to do what you need to do with this. So eventually, you can use whatever you want, but eventually you're going to want an Apathy's Maw. I slammed this after I defeated the final Harbinger, but I did have an Apathy's Maw with melee cold damage. So you're going to eventually want melee void damage in this spot. You can use whatever you want as you're leveling. Melee physical is fine. Anything melee will help scale Rive, but for the most part, eventually you're going to want melee void. Especially if you're playing in Season 2, when you can convert Rive fully to void. Peak of the Mountain, you can get this from the Lightless Arbor dungeon. It helps a lot with crits. The idea here, and this is why I shouted out the Max Roll team, they take this node, Focus Strike. So you get a double crit chance on your third attack. If you didn't know, Rive is 1, 2, 3 massive attack, right? So you do that, and this becomes not an automatic crit. It used to be an auto crit way back in the day, but then they changed it to become a double crit. And then your first and second strike can never crit. So you don't need to have crit on everything. You just need enough crit, right? And Peak of the Mountain is a great way to get you there. When you got enough on your gear, you might be able to get away from Peak of the Mountain, but this is going to be an easy source of a whole bunch of crit. But there is one major drawback. You cannot leech health from critical strikes. So the way the Max Roll team does it is you're going to be doing a whole bunch of hits. You're going to be hitting with healing hands because we convert it to a melee attack. That's also going to be healing you just because it's healing hands. You're also going to be leeching health with your first and second hits because they cannot crit. So you'll be able to sustain yourself with the healing from healing hands, the hits from healing hands, that the ones that don't crit, and then you'll be able to leech from your first and second hits since they can't crit at all. The idea is to make that third hit in the combo really strong. That's why melee attack speed is very strong on this build and having a lot of flat damage. So yeah, Apathy's Maw, highly recommend. Very good. But here's a couple ideas. You could also do an Odachi. I really like Odachi a lot. Gives you a lot of melee critical strike multiplier. It's very strong. I like it a lot, especially if you like swords. Also, you really look like a samurai with it. It looks super sick. So Odachi is really cool. Also, Hollow Blade is really cool, and you can go for similar stats on those two items. If you want to go axe, you can go Bardiche. You could also go Obsidian Axe, Great Axe, or Imperial Halberd. I mean, eventually you'll probably want to do something like a Bardiche. I think that one's very good. As for the chest piece, Titanheart will probably be best in slot, but for right now, I was able to get lucky with this T7 Vitality. Eventually, you're going to want Shatter Chains, but Spider Silk Belt's really good early on for poison and cold resistance. Citadel Boots is my only source of critical strike reduction. Yeah, so as you can tell with the idols, I was able to get those increased echo damage when the skill echoes, and then the rest was just all resistances. As for the blessings, it's just whatever. I didn't really farm them out. I was able to get some endurance. Eternal Gauntlets will be your best in slot near the end, but a lot of this stuff requires level 86 or above, so be sure to check out the other planners and see where to go from there. And like I said, just use the bar on everything. As for the skills, I didn't put a bar on everything. Like, I didn't put a bar on Rive. Abyssal Echoes is something I recommend after you hit level 76, between 76 and 80, that you drop Erasing Strike. I recommend dropping Erasing Strike for Abyssal Echoes, just because by that point, Rive is going to be doing a lot of damage. All right, and that is it for the planners. Let's go ahead and jump into the loot filter section, then we'll jump into the game. All right, here we are in game. As you guys can tell, my loot filter is completely disabled. I've had to move my face to the middle of the screen, so don't mind me there. All right, so let's go ahead and open up the loot filter. So I typically play with a pretty loose loot filter, and then I build it as I go. Based off of the feedback from the previous video, the Bleed Hammer Leveling Build Guide. There we go, I can speak. I made a few changes. I tried to keep some of my earlier rules, like, because normally what I'll do is as I'm going around, I'll be like, oh, okay, cool, I need like a two-handed weapon. I'll make a rule for like two-handed weapon. In this case, I'm looking for this particular affix with this particular base, two-handed axe or sword. I'll do it. Once I find it, I delete the rule. This time I kept it. All right, so the idea being you can click it on and off. So let me kind of go into the mindset of how I play. So as you guys can tell right here, as I explained in the previous video, I am one of those few psychos who plays with the prefixes and suffixes on my weapons and like on the stuff on the ground, right? So some people, you see how it says Dark Hollow Blade of Conflagration. So dark means melee void, conflagration means ignite. This is not a very absolute definitive way, but I already know that because I have a lot of time in the game. You guys may not know that because if you're looking up a leveling guide, you're either a veteran player coming back, wanting to play some more again, and you're trying to get refreshed on everything, so you figure you might look up a leveling guide, or you might be brand new. And so, dark, what does that mean? So I get it, but this is how I make my loot filters. This is how I think. So I'm trying to explain that to you because I can't, make everybody happy, right? I can't make everybody happy with the loot filter. So I'm just going to make the loot filters the way that I make it and explain my thought process, if that makes sense. So I play with prefixes and suffixes on the ground, and then I use my eyes as my primary loot filter. So when I'm first playing, I keep it very, very loose. If anything, I'll just be like, hide normal items, right? So the idea is to fill all your gear slots with stuff right here, and then hide normal items. And that's what I'll do for a little bit. And then if I really need something like in this slot, like if I know I really need like a two-handed item, I'll make a quick rule for it and then delete it later. What I did this time around, though, is I kept those early rules and then I put a label on them just so... at one point I was looking for an early two-handed weapon with bleed, right? So I was just looking for something with some bleed on there. But I left the rule there. I don't think there's anything with bleed. I left the rule there in case you guys wanted to use it. But for the most part, these early rules, you can either delete them yourselves or you can just take them off. And as you're going along, as you're filling in the void here... you can begin to hide more and more with these rules. I haven't created a rule for hiding exalteds because it hasn't come up yet, but you can definitely hide exalteds. You can even go in here and maybe edit this rule. All you got to do is click, right? So let me show you how I'm doing this. If you're not very familiar with loot filters, or at least last Epoch loot filters, click. It's going to bring up this thing. You see, it says hide all normal, magic, rare items. So hide your grays, your blues, your yellows. Click on this bar. Click exalted. Update. Boom. You're now hiding all your purples. That's going to be a while. And you can be more specific with those rules too. But for right now, I figure this is a leveling guide. Let me put those right there. So let me also explain what else I got here. So I recommend by default you keep these two enabled all the time. This is going to hide all the idols from Primalist, Mage, Acolyte, and Rogue. And it's also going to hide, this is going to hide the idols. This is going to hide the items. You're not necessarily looking for those. Now, some of those items might come up, right? I keep my loot filter is pretty loose with the T7 and T6 affixes. So sometimes you might find T6 health on a rogue item, right? If that makes sense. You might find T6 health on a rogue helmet. I typically still hold on to those if they're interesting enough because you can slam them, assuming they don't have any T6, assuming they don't have any class affixes on there. But that's way out. Like, you're probably not going to run into that as a leveling guide. So let me explain what else I got here. So you're probably going to start with these three rules. Hide this and then hide that. Once you have all of your armor slots, everything filled with something. And then what you're probably going to also do is you're going to scroll up here and you're going to start looking for, I need boots with, this is literally like 1 tier of movement speed, right? I need some movement speed. Oh, look at that. Here's an early pair of boots with some movement speed. This one's also pretty cool because it's got health. It's literally got 1 tier of movement speed. Once you get that, you could probably disable that, or you can leave it and you can shatter, boots with movement speed just to get some affixes. But I put that there just to get you guys going. Also, in all of my leveling guides, one thing I say is pretty important while leveling is to get some early physical resistance. So right here, this rule is going to show you items with at least 1 tier of physical resistance, which we got right here. So if you can get like some physical resistance on your armor, your rings, and maybe some boots, after that you're probably good. You can also craft on them, and you can disable that rule. I decided to leave that. After that, you can delete it. You can do whatever you want, but I decided to leave these early rules here. These rules, these are just affixes I think you guys might be interested in for T7 and T6 respectively. If you got enough T6s, you can just disable the rule right there. What we got right here, ultimately, you're going to want an Apathy's Maw. So this Apathy's Maw that I got right here is pretty strong. I slammed it. This is solo character found, all right? I did get that question. This is solo character found. I got lucky and got a 2 LP Apathies. I then found this axe with T6 melee void damage and T5 increased melee attack speed. I slammed it. I slammed this after we did the 10 out of 10 Harbingers. So it's because of an axe like this, I kind of want to come back and play this character a little bit more and just see what else I can get. But nonetheless, you're going to want like melee void, melee attack speed. You're ultimately going to want an Apathy's Maw. But I put some rules here for something you can use in the meantime. You can go either sword or axe. Let's go ahead and look at the subtypes I listed here. For sword, I listed Odachi and Hollow Blade. Odachi's very nice because you get that melee critical strike multiplier. Plus, you kind of look like a samurai. I'm not gonna lie. Odachi just looks really, really cool. But let's put the rule of cool to the side. Odachi can be very good. Right, the melee critical strike multiplier. If you're hitting that crit every third hit, you're getting that nice juicy crit. This is gonna make it pop. We also got Hollow Blade. It has a good amount of flat on there. It's got more flat than Odachi, and it has built-in void pen. I think Hollow Blade is also pretty good if you're going for the sword department. Let's go over the axe department. So I have 3 listed right here. We got Great Axe, right? 70 to 100% chance to bleed on melee hit. Obsidian Axe. This is a Apathy's Maw base. I think it's okay, but whatever. And then we got Bardiche, my personal favorite. It's got a lot of bleed chance. Right, you can do some pretty good stuff with that amount of bleed chance, but I recommend those. You could also just go for whatever 2-handed axe you can get your hands on. This is for more of the late game, especially if you can't get your hands on an Apathy's Maw. We also got the idols right here. Ultimately, what you're probably gonna want, echo damage and melee void. But I also threw on critical strike multiplier. We're going to do a little on the fly move right here. Let's go ahead. I'm going to edit this. Let's add an additional affix. Okay, cool. So, and then let's make this one because I like blue. Okay, so let me explain this and what I did there. So the sort of seafoam color, and you can, by the way, guys, you can change the color anytime you want, right? You can change it to whatever color you want. I personally like light blue because that to me tells me that's going to directly improve my build. Obviously for some of these early, maybe you want to change some of these early colors because they don't really make that much sense, so to speak, in the grand scheme of my thought process. But when we're talking about late game stuff, light blue typically means that's going to directly, you can use that now. You can directly slot that into your build. Gloves of 5. I was really looking for melee attack speed at one point. I'll leave that rule there for you guys if you guys want to use that. So what we're doing right here. So ultimately in the end, you're probably going to want echo damage when a skill echoes, because if you didn't know with Rive, we've probably already gone over this. you're going to echo a lot. So getting that increased damage when the skill echoes is going to be very nice. And we got 2 of those, right? But you might notice I said this is probably best in slot right here. Increase echo damage when a skill echoes, and then increase melee void damage, right? I said that's probably best in slot to get those. You notice this one, I don't have that. Reason why? I just found an idol with increased echo damage on it, and no, well, the suffix is fine. Increased armor is fine, but we'd probably want increased melee void damage. Let's go ahead and look at the loot filter. I found a solution for that. So you're not always going to find the perfect idol. Well, you might in season 2. This build is probably going to be nuts in season 2. But so you might find the perfect idol before season 2. That's why I put a light blue. This is going to show you what your best in slot looking idol would be for right here. I got lucky, obviously. But for the most part, you're probably not going to find an idol with those 2 affixes. So instead of throwing all these other idols with just the one affix, probably the most desirable affix away, I just did a rule where, you know, you can highlight these idols with increased echo damage. The same thing for critical strike multiplier with Rive. That's a nice to have as well. If you can't find any of these increased echo damage when a skill echoes, you can go for this one as well, but I vastly prefer that particular affix. And yeah, so right here, these are just your hybrid health. Just leave that rule on all the time. Percent health, I typically find it's harder to find percent health affixes for a little while, so I'll have this rule just to you find these and you shatter them, right? You find these and you shatter them. After a while, you're going to have enough. So there you go. Class affixes, when you're trying to craft on your gear, sometimes it's annoying when you got, you know, that perfect helmet and then it's got one particular class affix that you have no need for, like, you know, percent, 12% of void damage taken as physical or whatever. And you don't need that, but you haven't been picking up class affix is at all. So you have no shards, so you can't, the only thing you can do is rune of removal. You can't, chaos, seal, any of that. So that's what these class affix shatters are for, right? This is only going to show you items with tier 3 or more class affixes, and basically if it's orange, you pick it up, you shatter it. And then you have those shards on hand for when you're crafting to either, increase the level or something, or chaos it, or seal it, or something. And yeah, guys, that is how I play with my loot filters. So as you're going along, you got more of these items, you just, filter them out. If you need any early items, here you go. After that, you can delete them or leave them. When you're getting the monoliths, turn on these 2 you can turn these on anytime you want, but these will recolor your T6 and T7 affixes that I think are useful. And then these are some of the affixes that are directly useful to your build. But after that, the rest is up to you. So anyway, let's move on. All right, here we are in game. So I want to give you a quick demonstration of how normally works. It's pretty straight simple. So we got Rive. What's going to happen is we've taken points in Cleric's Hammer. So what that allows Healing Hands to do is to proc when we attack, right? So every time I hit with Rive, I'm also proccing Healing Hands. Pretty simple in that regard. So we're not using Volatile Reversal. If you didn't know, this is what Volatile Reversal does. Well, we might have to wait a little bit, so let's just keep attacking. So with Volatile Reversal, it's very strong in the tree because it gives you this extra damage right here, right? Essentially, you create these void rifts from where you start and where you end, and every enemy hit by that void rift takes up to 30% increased damage. This is getting removed. Volatile Reversal is getting changed. So what used to be a great way to do a bunch of extra damage was to run up, use that, boom, do an extra damage. It's not going to show up here because I'm not specting the Volatile Reversal. But they're changing this skill fundamentally. And so a lot of builds right now are kind of suffering if you're trying to go the no Volatile Reversal route. This build does okay, but it's going to be getting really buffed. All right, it's going to be receiving a lot of major buffs in the form of Rive will be able to have void scaling, and they're increasing the damage of everything to compensate for the lack of this node, because volatile reversal was literally in every, in literally every like in-game Sentinel build that actually pushed corruption, right? And the main thing, everything in Sentinel felt like it was balanced around what if they take volatile reversals. So I felt like everything kind of suffered. So it's really cool to play a build and squeeze out the damage and realize you don't need volatile reversal for that. So I think this build would be really good. So in replacing volatile reversal, we're taking Anomaly, which we already took before, but also we're taking Abyssal Echoes. When we hit an enemy that is blinded. So here's what we do. Here's a normal rotation. Let me just start with that. So obviously we all know about holding down Rive and attacking like that. We use Void Cleave as a traversal, right? You got a lot of momentum with that, but what you do is you use Anomaly, right? You want to be on top of an enemy. That way they're in that void bubble. And then you want to hit them with that Abyssal Echoes. All right? And what that's going to do is that's going to give you a 20% attack speed buff, as well as a 20% more damage multiplier against the enemy if they are blinded. And you can blind the enemy with Myopia. And then what we also do for extra damage, after casting Abyssal Echoes, your next Erasing Strike or Void Cleave, and Void Cleave, it counts for both, deals more damage to slowed enemies. And you slow the enemies like that. So what we do, slow the enemy, right? They are slowed. Use Erasing Strike, a Void Cleave, and you will deal an 80% more damage. And then I use these two nodes to spread it out. So that's why we're using this instead of Erasing Strike. But like, let's say you want to keep Erasing Strike. What does that look like? Let's say this is the in-game build and you want to keep doing the Void Cleave Erasing Strike thing. So basically you're going to hit an enemy, you're going to Void Cleave through them, and then you're going to hit them with that Erasing Strike. Right? Erasing Strike has a lot of good AoE. It can be spec'd. It can be spec'd to have a wider area, especially if you take some points in this node. So typically, and you'll see it in the planners, I'll put 2 points, 3 points, 1 point, and this will have a good amount of AoE. And then I'll take these nodes right here just for more damage and cooldown. And then that's what I'll do. I'll just go around, Void Cleave, Erasing Strike, attack enemies like that, Void Cleave, Erasing Strike. That's cool, but eventually you're going to get to the point where you're going to be doing the most damage with Rive. And maybe Void Cleave. Void Cleave just does so much damage. But you're going to be doing the most damage with Rive. And so I feel like the combo of Void Cleave, Erasing Strike becomes less useful. So that's why I dropped it in favor of just boosting the damage with Abyssal Echoes. So yeah, I wanted to just show you this quick demonstration of what the build will eventually look like. Let's move this back to Abyssal Echoes. And so let's say you don't want to turn Void Cleave into a traversal skill. All right, let's say you don't want to go with that. You don't have to. You can take these points out. You can put them elsewhere. What you would do is you would put a point right here into Rye's Chariot. And what that's going to allow you to do... Here, I'll do something very temporary. I think I got a code of an erase. This is going to give me a +1 to all skills, so hold up. So we put a point there. Now, it's not good to have 2 traversal skills, right? So you do this, that goes on cooldown, right? So there's no point in trying to keep both Healing Hands and this. But I recommend for the early days, instead of trying to turn Void Cleave into a traversal skill, just turn Healing Hands into a traversal skill because it's actually very smooth. It's not like lunge. You can just go wherever, and it feels very nice, right? Lunge requires a target. This does not require a target. So that's why I personally would prefer to use Healing Hands as a traversal skill. And then later on, when you got enough points, like level 20, you can take additional charges. You could get yourself something like, let's look over here. You can get yourself something like a pair of Dark Strides. I don't really have a good pair of Dark Strides. Right, but having a pair of Dark Strides is going to give you another charge, right? This is going to give you up to 3 charges of Void Cleave. There's going to be a lot of traversal that you're not going to be getting out of Healing Hands. But nonetheless, I think Healing Hands is pretty cool. And you don't have to worry about like attacking. Like, look, it's not activating Healing Hands, right? This only works when you directly cast Healing Hands. So typically, though, let's go ahead and remove that. So typically, though, when it comes to something like Healing Hands, I use it as a oops, I need help right now kind of heal, right? I use it as an emergency heal. So if you didn't know, so when you're attacking like this, right? When we're proccing Healing Hands, we're healing for 65%. We're healing for 65% less of the healing. So whatever the healing is, you're healing for 65% less of that. But when you actually full cast it, you get 100% of the healing. So like, let's say you take a heavy hit, you're fighting, heavy hit. Oh, I took a heavy hit. Void Cleave away. Quickly use Healing Hands to heal that back. All right, guys, and that was the demonstration. Thank you so much for being here. And let's check out some of the live streams, and then yeah, we'll get moving. All right, guys, here we are. This is a past live stream. We're not going to be sitting here watching the whole thing. So quick pointer, my camera, this is back when my camera was on the other side, so you get double the bike. Also, I just wanted to kind of, skim through some of the things, maybe point out a few things. But if you guys are interested in these live streams, there is a playlist in the description down below with all the leveling that I did with this. I recommend you check it out if you just want to, kind of click around. I don't have much of a timestamp. I just have right here, the leveling begins, that sort of thing. But let's go ahead and get into it. So when you're first starting, what are you doing? You're just trying to fill whatever you can. You're just trying to equip whatever you can, use whatever you can. You can specialize at level 4. And when you specialize so you can specialize at level 4, you get Rive at level 5. So you're going to have to wait 1 level, get Rive, specialize into it, and follow the points. Use the planar slider bar, right? And you're just trying to go through. You're using whatever you got at your disposal. You're using the hammers. You're using the Rive. I don't even think I've specialized into Rive yet. I haven't even put it on my hotbar. Yeah, I've specialized into it by now. So for a while, just through the first part of the leveling process, I'm still using a sorting board, right? I'm just using a sorting board to kind of get through stuff. I haven't fully switched over to the two-hander yet. But when we get to the temple, I think after we defeat these enemies, I do end up switching to a two-hander. I found one with melee. Well, I found one with some sort of melee flat damage to use. You take whatever you can get at this point. So I just wanted to show you that, leveling on, you're gonna have to kind of go with the flow just to get there. Sorry, my voice is getting a little strained. So let's speed this up. So this whole process was pretty slow for me. It was much faster for bleed hammers. I believe somewhere around an hour and 22 minutes is when I finally get my specialization. If you guys know anything, hour and 22 minutes. If you guys know anything about how I level and everything, this is very slow for me. Usually by an hour, I already have selected my specialization. So I kept dying a lot. I just wanted to tell you guys, it might be frustrating, but it gets better for sure. Just stick with it. I unfortunately, you know, I spec'd into the name of the stream, Rive Holy Trail. I would not recommend going with that. In the demonstration, I showed you what it would properly look like using the Void Cleave and the Erasing Strike in the Rive. But even here, I'm not even really, I don't think I can yet, but even right here, I'm just, like, I think this is fine with the lunge. When you can get healing hands, when we got enough points, you're not going to be able to get the points right off the bat. But when we can get the points, I think at this point we have healing hands. Have we spec'd into it as a traversal skill yet? It takes a little bit to get going. You don't want to spec into it too fast, and then it's using so much mana. Let's see. Have I? Yeah, I don't think I've even spec'd into it as a. Oh, there we go. Yeah. So early on, so this is like an hour 46. I've already spec'd into it as a traversal skill, so I've unspec'd out a lunge. I'm also spec'd into Javelin, doing the whole Holy Trail thing. Like I said, at this point, don't do Javelin, do Void Cleave, but whichever way you guys want to go with that. And I'll let you guys kind of poke around and check this out. I just want to show you guys that this is an option. So let's move on. And guys, that is the video. Thank you so much for clicking on the video. I really appreciate it. Tell me what I could do better, if there is anything. You guys were very receptive to the Bleed Hammer builds, and you guys said as much in the comments. There wasn't a lot of criticism, so I've followed the same format. Hopefully this is something that helps you guys out. If you got any questions, feel free to drop them in the comments down below, or stop by one of my live streams. Information on that available in the description down below. And yeah, thank you so much, guys. Really looking forward to season 2. I think this build will be an absolute banger in season 2. And until then, we'll just keep grinding it out. Anyway, you guys take care. Peace.